Hey guys, today we're looking at Chapter 9, Lesson 1. So what we're going to do is start by looking at my ruler here. If you look really closely, you can see that we have the whole numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all those lovely whole numbers. But in between we have the fractions, so the little bitty marks in between. Now some are bigger than others, so this main one here in the middle we have as the half. And then we have these other ones that are a little bit bigger, and they're our fourths. And then we have the really small ones that are our eighths. Now, on a ruler a little bit smaller than this, they might break down even smaller than eighths, but for this one, that's as small as we go. Now, we on this ruler have several what we call benchmark fractions. Benchmarks are the ones that are kind of the most important. You get to those before anything else. So, whole numbers are obviously a benchmark, 1 to 2. And then your other main benchmark is going to be a half. Some might consider it to be a fourth, but we're only going to use our 0, our 1, and our half. Okay, so jumping back, looking at my number line here, we can look at all fractions, and we've done this before in class. We can look at them all as being at 0, at being at 1, or being somewhere in between, somewhere close to a half. So what we're going to be looking at is, do numbers fall closer to our benchmark 0, a half, or 1? So we're going to be rounding fractions, trying to decide where in here they fall. All right, let's look at an example. Let's look at the example 4 ninths. Now, the ninths, which is our denominator, that means we're going to break this up into 9 equal pieces. And the 4 means that we're going to color in 4 of those. So if I was to best divide this fraction into 9 equal pieces, I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I need one more piece, so we'll do somewhere in there. Obviously mine are not quite equal, but that would be what you would want, 9 equal pieces. And then we have to color in 4 of those. So that would be this one, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're landing about here for our 4 ninths. And we have to decide, is that going to be closer to 0? Is that going to be closer to a half? Or is it going to be the closest to 1? And as you can see, these are pretty close. So we kind of split it here and say if it's on this side, it's closest to 0. If it's on this side, it's closest to a half. So we would say 4 ninths is close to 1/2. Now, another way that we can determine it is we can say, well, what is our denominator, which is 9, so without using my number line, and I know I'm going to have 9 pieces, and that equals 1 whole. I hope you can see this marker. Now, if you would look at a half of 9 and split that in half, you would know that 4 1/2 equals half of 9. And obviously 0 pieces would equal 0 of 9. So without even using a number line, we can look at this and say, well, 4 1/2, 4 is really close to 4 1/2, so our fraction would be closest to a half. All right, let's look at another example. Let's look at 5/6. So I'm going to draw my number line again. Obviously I have 0, a half, and 1. And I'm wanting to know where on here does 5/6 fall? So what I'm going to be doing is saying, okay, I divide my number line into 6 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are a bit more equal. And then I color in 5 of them. So I'm going to come over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm looking like 5/6 is right here. And I have to decide, is that closest to 1/2 or closest to 1? Well, if I was to divide that exactly equal, that would be kind of my line. So 5/6 is just barely closer to 1. So we would say closest to 1/2. Now looking at it without our number line, so we can practice that way, we would look and we would say, okay, my denominator is 6. So we have to have 6 pieces to equal 1/2. Now to be a half, I have to look at how many pieces are half of 6, and that one's pretty easy. You just divide by 2 and we get 3 pieces. And finally, for 0 parts would be 0 pieces. Now we look at our numerator and we say, well, is that closest to 5, 3, or 0? And it's closest to 6, or what did I say, 5, 3, and 0? 6, 3, and 0. And since it's closest to 6, we would say it's closest to 1/2. Which is the same answer we got with our number line. So when you come to class, we'll be looking at our number lines and where numbers fall on them. We'll also be seeing if you can eventually do it without the number line and just be able to tell using like your half whole and 0 here to determine whether it falls closest to your benchmarks of 0, 1/2, or half. Can't wait to see you in class.